And I'm
Can't mess that up.
This is Gina V.
Hi, how do you do?
Thank you.
And now representing the Corvallis Homeless Shelter Coalition. 10 minutes start now.
Right. Okay, this agency called the Corvallis Homeless Shelter Coalition is probably best known for two things that are very visible. One is the one that we started out with about many years, 5 years now, the homeless shelter for men, which is a cold weather shelter that runs for 4 months. In fact, in 6 days it will be the end of its season, which is kind of unnerving, because I heard it was supposed to snow. And the second thing is that we have just this year started what's called Partners Place. It's a huge project using something called the Housing First model, which will be available to about 14 people, 14 chronically homeless people in July when the building is finished. So if you drive up Harrison and look off to the right before you get to the Lutheran Church, you will see a new building, and that's Partners Place, and that's where this Housing First project will be happening. But that will not replace the need for an overnight shelter, because there's always going to be people who need that. What I'm talking about tonight is a project called an outreach worker, a social outreach worker, and that may not be as visible as the housing units, but what it is a critical piece to getting people to know about it, to be ready to change their lives, or to have immediate needs met. It's kind of real, and Tom used in the last one of the presentations the idea of an upstream intervention. This person is kind of, and I'm just going to be say it, I've been doing that for a long time, and what I have written as a descriptor, it's sort of like going out to see Richard Mills, who lives in the wetlands, and having him say, I'm itching, I need to get to the doctor, and I take him and I get the medicines, and then I make sure he does it, and I come back 2 weeks later and he hasn't changed some of the things, so we try to work on ways to fix that. So it's health care. It's more than just having him come to the shelter, because he won't. He can't. His mental health situation is such that he wouldn't be one to come to the shelter. This project that we're seeking funding for would also be someone who prepares people to do one of the several things that you've got to do to get out of homelessness, which is get an income. So this person would need training in, or have the training, or be willing to take the training in getting folks ready for the SSI, SSDI programs that provide people money that they can get out of their homelessness and into some housing. So those are the things that this project is for. And how much money are we asking for? We're asking for $15,000. Several years ago, the city of Corvallis gave us a one-time grant, and we had someone, not under this umbrella, but they gave it to the Daytime Drop-In Center, that other hat, and that person helped people get ready to get into Partners Place, to get an income, et cetera, et cetera. And we have 30 people in the last 2 years who have moved out of homelessness, probably because of the efforts of this job called an outreach worker. And so we don't have that money. That was a one-time money. And we would like to do that again. We would like to be able to continue this. It's not a counselor. It's sort of like maybe finding someone who would then be channeled to that, maybe. That might be one need. But it's a very, very needed position in the whole picture of ending homelessness in 10 years. So specifically, the money would be spent on paying this person, and approximately $18 an hour, maybe 4 hours a week, is what we're thinking we could do with this money. How many additional people will this help beyond what you already are doing? Well, I would say at least 30 more people could be more specifically helped to get income. They would continue the work we're doing. It's hard to measure. Every day there's somebody new. Every day there's somebody old that is being helped by this kind of service. The likelihood of success, well, I think if you look at the other side, the likelihood of not succeeding without this kind of help is huge. We really need to reinstate and or create more than what we had before in order to end homelessness. If we got 50% of the request, we would do the best we can. We would continue to do it without with volunteers, but it's not the same as having someone who can do more case management of this upstream intervention. And I brought Gina with me to try to explain just a little bit about our finances. We are not a well-funded, huge organization. The project Partners Place is huge, and so when you look at our bottom line, it may seem like it's huge, but the other side of the jobs that we do, the shelter and this particular outreach, is not part of that bottom line on the stuff that you'll see. So I think questions probably would be better. Yes.
So the Cold Weather Shelter does not serve women. Does Partners Place serve women?
It can, yes. And we work, our coalition does work closely with Wilma Van Shelven, who is the one with Loving, who has been taking the women's shelter. It's 2 years old now. And next year, they don't know where they're going to be at either. So we're hoping to be, the shelter to be in the same place again. We've had it in the same place for 3 years, which has been awesome. So this outreach worker would work in their shelter, in this shelter. It would be in daytime drop-in center, be out in the fields with Richard Mills. So it would be all over the place. Yes.
So would the worker be out, just as you said, going out looking for other people that are potential in
What
in
I
need?
do is I go and see somebody at the post office. If I don't know who they are, I ask.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And so is this for all ages? So you'd be referring
Sure.
some to Jackson Street
Sure.
if you had younger
It's
kids?
a point of entry again.
And do you have lawyers here that you can work with in town that do SSI work?
Yeah, after, well, the best thing to do is not to have to get to that step, but we do have interactions with some of the folks that take it that far.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Are the 14 positions filled?
It's not having, we don't have applications yet. It's a process that's being developed. We do 6, and I can talk to you about it later. There's going to be 6 sessions to help people discern whether they're ready to apply.
Mm-hmm.
So it's quite a process, and we're just getting the sessions figured out.
Is this money solely for that position of the outreach worker?
This money is solely for this position.
And how long is it supposed to sustain this position?
Well, if we had 4 hours, 4 days a week, it would probably sustain it for a year. What can happen in a year? Mm-hmm. Other questions? Good questions. Keep them coming. Any for Gina? Or I haven't let her say a word.
Basically, if you are looking at the budget for the whole organization, great majority of it is the grants that we were awarded to purchase the building and to be able to provide operational costs for the building for 4 years and to provide startup costs. So there is no cost to the ongoing programs that Alita has sustained over these many years that will be made by Partners Place. At this point, Partners Place is self-funding for 4 years.
I have a question. At Partners Place, is there supervision?
Oh yes, there's an on-site property manager who lives there, and there is a case manager. And we have a memorandum of understanding with Lynn Benton Housing Authority.
Mm-hmm.
So they are doing all of the management in terms of tenants and issues about rent collection and things like that.
When you had the grant from the city, I think it was,
Mhm.
a couple of years ago, 2 years ago, how many hours did that person, or was it one person?
It was
at
one
that
person.
point? How many hours did they work?
And pretty much it ended up being focused on obtaining SSI and SSDI, getting people ready to have an income so that they could then participate in Partners Placement, etc.
Okay.
So they didn't do as much of the other parts of that job that I explained. My job. So,
So the 30 people that you said over the last 2 years have moved out of homelessness
Mhm.
have just been as a result of,
Probably a lot of the work that she did. A couple names, Les Nesbitt, who lived under the bridge and was in the paper about his window that cost $1 million, but it got a little breezy because he couldn't shut it. I don't remember that. And the other person, Tom Foster, was one of the 6 people, I think, that was shown at some of the programs that were great fundraisers. So.
So we're already